1. The following is part 4 in an ongoing series. I was cautious to hang out more with Sugarbeard. I really did want to talk more about Teen Titans. And I also like some animes, albeit I'm picky with them. I figured we had a few things in common, and he'd been acting nice recently. However, I knew Alana wouldn't hold a grudge for no reason at all, so I asked her what happened between them. Strap in, folks, it's a cringy ride. Please keep in mind these are the extreme moments because she couldn't tell me everything. Alana and Sugarbeard started in the same friend group in the first few months of their freshman year. They all lived in the same building, enjoyed anime and RPGs. Although Alana admitted she was mild among the group. She liked most of them a lot, but she admitted Sugarbeard always made her a little uncomfortable. However, she knew he was homeschooled in high school, so she excused the social awkwardness. His fascination and fixation on her evolved a little after meeting her. She noticed it for the first time when she wore one of her skirts she made on an outing the friend group all went on. He commented on how it made your body look perfect. Alana responded carefully, "Well, I made it myself, so it's a custom fit." "Oh," he drooled. "Sewing is such an important skill for a woman." One of their friends quickly moved to defuse the situation. "Sewing is an important skill for anyone. It's so useful." Sugarbeard grumbled, but let the conversation move on. He texted her messages for a while, about none of them ultra cringy. Things like, "You look nice today," or "I wish we could spend some more time alone together." Then she decided to make some traditional Cuban when she started to feel homesick. This is where the cringe really took off. "This is delicious," Sugarbeard mused. "I'd give just about anything to have a partner who could cook like this." "You get fatter," one of their friends teased. "Softer for her," protested Sugarbeard. "Hey Alana, do you think I could give you some of my secret family recipes, and you could make them for me? I'd like to know some of yours too." Alana tightened her jaw. She didn't like the implications of cooking for him. "I hope you know," she hissed, "that in my family, exchanging family recipes is only done if you're part of our family." He let a grin slide across his face. "That'd be real nice." In a moment of stunned silence, Alana escaped under the pretense of washing dishes. After that, the messages got more frightening. "I was thinking about you a lot today," or sending her lists of things he liked about her, which focused on her body and not her personality. Alana agreed to one more night of RPG after this. Sugarbeard was DM, so she figured he would focus on the game. She left a few minutes in when he started describing her character as the gorgeous and irresistible. The next day started the drawings. He slid one under her door of her character seductively clothed and poised. She wrote him a note in return begging him to please stop, and that she didn't like that kind of attention. Things went quiet for almost a week when 2 or more drawings appeared under her door. Both were of Alana herself. One was of her scantily clad, sprawled across a bed, and the other depicted her in nothing but an apron. Alana promptly moved out of the building and blocked his number. She ignored all his attempts to contact her after. They ended up in the same building again at the beginning of sophomore year. He had gotten the hint by then, but she had still caught him staring at her for uncomfortably long periods of time. All went silent with interactions until the incident with Chip. 2. So it was my first week of college, and I'm in maths class. I'm pretty introverted and had not really been in a room with so many new people before, so I was determined to make a good first impression. The girl sat next to me on my table wasn't particularly nice to me, so I gave up on trying to befriend her quite quickly. Instead, I tried talking to the 2 guys that were sat a few desks away. One was pretty passive and chill. The other was very enthusiastic about talking to me. This was Rick. I didn't think anything of his enthusiasm. I was just happy that someone actually seemed to want to talk to me. And this guy didn't look like a typical neckbeard either. He kind of looked like Pro Jared, but if Pro Jared was short and had short blonde hair, acne, and wore the same grey tracksuit every day. Everything was totally fine and normal for a while, and I even moved desks so I could sit next to my math buddies. I call him Rick in this story because he was a great physicist and physics enthusiast, his words, which I find funny, considering we were in a math catch-up class. and often sometimes would try to find loopholes in Marvel heroes' superpowers for fun, that sort of thing, which was kind of annoying. However, during these conversations, one day I made a critical mistake. I told Rick I play video games. I randomly joked that Bloodborne made my blood pressure go through the roof because it was so stressful. And that's when I suddenly noticed a change in Rick's behavior. His eyes lit up and his expression looked immediately a lot more interested and attentive. Straight away he started telling me about how I was, quote, officially the coolest girl I know. He started complimenting me a lot, especially about my appearance. Suffice to say, I got very uncomfortable very quickly, but I hadn't learned that I could say no to people when they were bothering me yet. So I always just laughed him off, tried to change the subject. I still didn't have many people I would talk to at college yet either, so I didn't feel like I could just cut him off. Stupid, I know. Then he started trying to be a gentleman. He would run across the room to open doors for me, even when I had my hand on the handle and was about to open them myself, like full-on drop whatever conversation he was involved in to duck under my arm and slam his entire body into them. He would even follow me down corridors and do this, before turning around and going back the other way. He needed to go the other way, he followed me in the wrong direction so he could open doors for me, which was super odd. He also insisted on waiting for me to get my things together after class so he could walk me across campus, which I was very annoyed by, but still didn't feel I could tell him to stop it. I just started packing my backpack up a lot more slowly in the hope he would get impatient and leave before me. He would compliment anything remotely nerdy I had, did, or said, whether it was a game, a movie reference, or a game-related t-shirt I was wearing. To make things worse, the teacher made a joke once about me being Rick's stalker. There was context for this joke, but I don't remember it now. I just remember being embarrassed by it. And Rick enjoyed this idea far too much. He would also make excuses to touch me, like asking me if I was his friend, and when I awkwardly replied I was, he would hug me or rub my arm, or put a hand on my shoulder, and it was gross. Cut to one day when I was talking to Bat. Rick spotted us and came over to talk to me, and I was surprised to find out that he and Bat knew each other from school, where Rick incessantly picked on Bat. Conversely, Rick was very surprised to learn that me and Bat were dating and had been for a while. He then started screeching about how he couldn't believe it and yelling at Bat, how did you land her? And how did you manage to get that? Over and over again. All Bat could do was shrug, obviously getting more embarrassed the more vocal Rick got. So I put a stop to it. I was annoyed at Rick's behavior towards someone I cared about, so I told him to stop, and that Bat was nice. That stopped Rick in his tracks, and he looked quite put out. He came back briefly while me and Bat were eating lunch together, where he was wildly stood, gesturing his disbelief. He ran away as soon as he saw that I'd seen him. Did the knowledge that I was in a relationship deter him? Not even a little bit. This is Rick we're talking about here. In fact, his behavior actually got worse. Once I was heading up a staircase to a different class and heard a voice shouting, "Hey GM, you look good today, like really good, really good." I looked up and saw him camping out at the top of the stairs. It really scared me. He also shouted to me and hugged me on the street whenever he saw me, even if I was out with friends or family. The final straw came soon after. I was sat at my desk one morning, spacing out as I often do, when I suddenly feel something on the back of my head sliding down my neck and shoulders. I snap out of my spacing and turn around, and Rick is standing uncomfortably close behind me. He's running his hands through my hair and stroking my shoulder and the side of my face. I was completely frozen and bewildered. I had no idea how to respond to this. I asked him what he was doing, and he told me this, "Adjusting your hair," and flipped it over my shoulder. He gave me the creepiest smile and said, "There, you look much prettier now." I feel really nasty and slimy just thinking about it. Thankfully, though, the teacher stepped in. He told Rick to stop what he was doing and not touch me again. Rick argued that he had a spatial awareness disorder and that my hair, not being right, was bothering him, but my teacher wasn't having any of it. After class, the teacher pulled me aside and made Rick, who was waiting for me, leave the room while he spoke to me. I was terrified I'd done something wrong. But instead he asked me if I was okay. He told me that he was the dad of a teenage girl himself, and that seeing boys harass his female students particularly pissed him off as a result, and then asked me if I wanted him to keep an eye on Rick for me. He was very encouraging, and his support honestly surprised me. I told him that I was okay and that Rick had been mostly harmless. But the teacher told me he'd keep an eye out anyway, as he knew that behavior like that could escalate. He also apologized for the stalker joke he made, as he now realized that it had been in poor taste. Rick grilled me about what the teacher had said to me. He was waiting outside the classroom for me, but I was evasive. I left that college soon after anyway, so thankfully I never saw Rick again, and he had no way he could keep in contact with me. 3. This takes place during high school, where I first met Yu-Gi-Oh! Beard. Through a mutual friend, and we all played orchestra in the same class. I had invited Yu-Gi-Oh! Beard and her buddy and some of my other friends over for my birthday. We were playing Jackbox and overall having a good time. We sort of got together at the party and things went from there. We started going out, and at first things were nice. We hung out and watched anime together, and he sent me gifts when we were busy. I was a little weirded out by how messy his room was, and that he had VR hentai games. But it was whatever. We played Airsoft together and generally had a good time. However, things got weird once he started National Guard basic training. Some of his buddies there encouraged him to do weird things. He kept harassing me about playing Yu-Gi-Oh! With him, hence the name. Despite me telling him I wasn't interested several times, he also kept trying to convince me to join the Guard with him, but I wasn't into that either. His buddies would then ask about me during basic, and of course he told them everything. From how I was a weirdo who wasn't afraid to say I fancied myself a xenophile, to how his cock was so big I accidentally choked on him. We had made a promise that we wouldn't share that with anyone. When I confronted him about it, he was pretty rude. "But don't you tell your girlfriends about that kind of stuff?" "Of course not! That's incredibly private stuff, what the hell?" "Whatever. I needed to make friends. That's not an excuse to throw me under the bus." "Haven't you been bullied before? Didn't you throw people under the bus?" "Of fucking course not, that's terrible." After that, it pretty much devolved into me spitting curses and swear words at him. This was all over Discord since he was still at the base. Shortly after that, his buddies sent me several weird letters. They sent me disgusting Q-tips stained with black ink, petition telling me to give up my favorite video game, and ugly letters calling me all kinds of things. I also confronted him about this, but he lied to me. He claimed that he had asked them to not send that, but they went ahead and did so anyway. I'm sure he didn't care enough to ask that of them. After all this, I straight out told him we were done and never wanted to hear from him again. He called me horrible things and cursed me out over Discord. I blocked him on all platforms I could and kicked him from every server of mine. He tried to reach out to my friends and other mutuals on Discord, but I quickly told them what happened, and they blocked him too. Several weeks after the online confrontation, I saw him at the place I work at. I nearly had a panic attack and left the sales floor. I immediately talked to HR and they set up a plan to make sure I was safe. After a while, I didn't see him at the store and I felt safe enough to discard the safety plan. Despite this, I heard other co-workers tell me they'd seen him asking about me on my days off. It still creeps me out to no deal how disgusting and rude this guy was. Still sticks me as funny how he jokingly said, "I respect women." That's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed the cringe. 4. So this is a story from long ago in my teens, in ancient times where the iPhone 6 was brand new, YouTube was still somewhat respectable, and Advanced Warfare was just released. A good friend of mine left the school and didn't come back, breaking up the trio we had. Would later meet up again, years later by the way. Lawrence, glad your life is getting better. And later on, a new student joined the school. This, ladies and gents, is our Neckbeard. To protect anyone's identity, let's call him Bird, since his last name is that of a bird, but he had no beard. The school trusted one of my other friends to introduce him to the school. then me and Bird got talking about various things. He was into anime, mainly Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z, and Beyblade. And I gave him advice to make sure no one picked on him at school. Advice like don't eat in class, remember your P's and Q's, and for God's sake, if you're going to pick a fight, make sure it's a fight you're willing to see through to the end. It was only 3 weeks in when he started acting up. Taking out containers of cold pasta that smelled like they were made by someone who had no idea how expiration dates work, and drinks and eating them in class. Of course, this was against rules, especially in the IT, science, drama, and art departments, so teachers told him off, and he claimed that the teachers hated him. He brought in his Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck too, which was an elemental hero structure deck, all the time, and when he wasn't eating in class, he was playing with it. Got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Myself and found a small group of kids that also played it, so I joined up, but so did Bird. Unsurprisingly, he had his ass handed to him every time, claiming his deck was perfect, since it was the protagonist's deck, which I don't understand how that would make it perfect. Then, of course, he started to get violent with other students. And even before this point, I had already told him bluntly that we were not friends anymore because of his behavior, and I had tolerated his existence around me. This, dear listener, to him meant, "Oh, we're such best friends," and him sticking around me was causing bullying towards me to pick up again. People grabbing my head and squealing like pigs in my ears, which generally landed them a punch to the face. That sort of stuff. But what about Bird? Usually I say bullying is unjustifiable, but considering everything he has done, including threatening to murder me, I'll get to that one in a second, I was more than happy to sit back, relax, and let the bullies have him. This became so after I publicly screamed at him to fuck off and die because I would rather see you dead than be my friend. Cruel? Yes, but I was very angry, but still don't regret saying it. Now you're probably wondering, what was the school doing? Well, instead of being helpful and punishing Bird for everything he was doing, as well as explaining that everything he was doing, from punching random students to generally pestering me after I told him to fuck off, what the school did was force me to be his friend by sitting me next to him and punishing me every time I told him to fuck off. A few cool teachers let me get away from him, but the rest made excuses for him. One of my most hated excuses was one a teacher said to me as an excuse for Bird threatening to murder me. "He has autism, just like you. He does not understand what he is doing is wrong." This statement alone, listener, sent me into a spiral of rage and depression that still lasts to this day when it comes to the topic of autism. I resist the urge to destroy every object around me whenever I think of that statement. As implied, I have autism as well. I am a high-functioning autistic, but even people who are not high-functioning can understand that inflicting pain or threatening to do that is a bad thing. Well, Bird threatened to murder me. Can't remember why. So I told the teacher of a small block at that school, let's call it support block, where your general student support and special needs areas are. It's also where I went every morning to get breakfast because I didn't eat it at home. She assured me that she would talk to him the minute he came in, so I was at the games table playing Yu-Gi-Oh! As usual in the morning when Bird came in. He came over to the table and I got up telling him to back off, reaching for a screwdriver in my pocket. He stepped closer, saying something along the lines of, "Well, I thought we were friends." I said to back off again, but louder, pulling out the screwdriver and telling him if he took another step closer I would attack him. Again, to reiterate, he threatened to kill me. At a school like ours, you do not threaten to kill someone unless you're going to do it. That's when the teacher stepped in, dragging him back, and I lost the screwdriver. I was punished, blah blah blah. But did he get punished for threatening to murder me? And approaching when I told him to back off? Of course not. I had to suffer his stupidity for another year. Till in year 10, or 11, I live in the UK, he vanished. I don't know what happened, and did not care that pest was finally gone. I haven't had contact with him since, and glad to be rid of him, even though I bear the scars of his existence, both mental and physical. Also, something to add, he did, unironically, Naruto run from class to class sometimes. He had an aura of stank that smelt of pasta and death. Then there was also the time he stamped on my head during the drama class. I lost my vision for a few seconds, but generally could not go near him without resisting the urge to smash in his skull personally. 5. Hello once again, guys. Exploits from Brotherbeard. Now this is the juicy bit of my life with Brotherbeard. The gross, greasy bits, that is. I know that one of the cringe things from Neckbeards are how they interact with people, mainly to the gender they're attracted to. And Brotherbeard, oh boy, he is the reason why I believe every single Neckbeard story I hear. Without further ado, here is the cringe. When I started to hang out with Zephyr, he brought his sister over to learn how to play Magic the Gathering. My entire family was into it, even my father had a deck to play with us kids. So we were sitting on the floor, Zephyr, his sister, myself, and Brotherbeard. I was playing Sis Zephyr with Zephyr, teaching her how to play and what to do. Brotherbeard was creepily watching us. And when I say us, I mean he was staring at Sis Zephyr. We were talking about things in life. Sis Zephyr was like my sister, so I kept giving her brotherly advice. She brings up her boyfriend again. He was slightly abusive, but not to the point where she was harmed. More like physically controlling. I can hear everyone's eyes roll, so I'm going to get on with the line. My Brotherbeard leans over and gets in her face and says, everyone together now, "If I was your boyfriend, I would treat you like a queen." This took all three of us by surprise. The first time I heard this line, and I knew it was bad, Sis Zephyr threw her hands up and walked out of the house. They lived kind of close, so her walking home creeped out wasn't odd. Though Zephyr left to catch up with his sister. I told my parents what happened, but nothing came of it. When dipping dots came out, for those that don't know, they are ice cream frozen to be little dots. Very good. We were walking in the mall when we found a dipping dots stall. My brothers and I asked our father if we could get some. They were expensive, so he asked if we could have a taste test. The clerk at the stall was a teenage girl, about the same age as Brotherbeard, late teens just about. She handed my younger brother a tablespoon, handle out. He took it from her and he loved it. She handed me a different tablespoon, handle out. Why am I saying handle out? Well, because she hands Brotherbeard a tablespoon, handle out, for him to take. Instead, he leans in and puts his mouth over the spoon part, that is pointing at the clerk, and takes a huge slobbery bite, leaving the now dripping spoon in the poor girl's hand. She pulled back, visibly grossed out, and threw away the spoon like it was the Black Plague, and we walked away. Brotherbeard told me, "Hey, she spoon-fed me." This was the first time I ever face-palmed. Now for the crown jewel, the moment that I lost any hope for Brotherbeard. Remember, I love my brother very much. It hurts me to write this. But I do this not for laughs, not to diss, but to inform. First of all, my mother was obsessed with finding anything wrong with us. She had found a kind of therapy for both me and Brotherbeard. For Brotherbeard, it was for his autism. Myself was for bipolar. She found two therapists that worked at the same place and were able to hook us both up at the same time. Both of them were attractive young women. Brotherbeard was almost 18 at this time, and I was 4 years younger than him. We were to see these girls every week for 3 months. Brotherbeard admitted that the therapist I had was the hotter of the two, and to rub it in, I agreed. He often asked myself and his therapist if we could trade try-lists. I enjoyed the sessions myself. Not only did we focus on my love for writing parodies, but I got to watch Brotherbeard squirm whenever therapy was mentioned. Now, the last week was coming up. Brotherbeard mentioned that he had a plan to make sure he keeps seeing his therapist. I swear a red flag popped up in front of his face. I tried to tell my parents, but they said that this was the final week, no matter what Brotherbeard had planned. So instead of a final goodbye session with my therapist, I warned her that Brotherbeard had an annoying crush on both of them, and what he told me earlier. She replied, "Don't worry. We had a lot of people that crushed on us. We know what to do." I was still worried, and I was right. Brother Beard's therapist walked into our room, more rushed, to be honest. They both talked about what happened. Apparently, Brother Beard had found a ring box and proposed to her. Yeah, that's right. He got down on one knee, pulled out an old opened ring box that I have no idea where it came from, and asked a complete stranger to marry him. I exclaimed, "What?" And she started to cry. I don't know what to do. This is just... She broke fully down. I told my therapist to call my father and tell him what happened. "What?" I can hear my father exclaim. He was down there in minutes yelling at my brother and trying to explain proper etiquette of worker versus patient. The thing that got me, what really pissed me off, he blamed me. Apparently, I warned her what he was doing, or I was dating both of them, or my therapist would have said yes. He couldn't decide why he was mad at me. Don't worry, this is not the end of the tales of Brother Beard. There are still tales of things that he shouldn't have said, and even something about myself. So Chapter 4 will focus on things that happened with my wife. Younger brother makes an appearance then too.
Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, episode 70. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, and comment, and share the video with all your friends, family, and your frenemies too, because why not? Build a bridge. Alright, let's see now. Oh yes, if you have a story you'd like to send in yourself, you can send that along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. That's kingofthecities@gmail.com. You can find that in the description of the video. Also, news. Yes, I added a couple of new designs. Well, one new design to a few new items to the Hellfreezer Teespring store. Yeah, almost forgot the name of the store. The Hellfreezer Teespring store. They're up now. It's a few tops, hoodies, t-shirts, and a new mug. It's the Hellfreezer logo. Behind some slightly faded text that says, "It's a reading group." Because we're a reading group. We're not a cult. And there's no vampires. No matter what people say. Okay. And with that, I'm going to head off from now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening. And take very good care of yourselves.